Right, listen here. I've been watching these stock markets for 40 years, and I've never seen anything this strange. There's this company, Palantir, they call it, that's gone up 500% in 2 years. 500%. And you know what the maddening bit is? Nobody can tell you what they actually do. I've asked around, talked to analysts who make more in a month than I made in a year, back when money meant something. They all give me the same rubbish. Oh, it's data analytics, and they work with governments. Data analytics. In my day, we called that by looking at the books and using your brain. Now they're worth $300 billion. That's more than some countries' entire economies. And for what? For being secretive. For refusing to tell their own shareholders what they're up to. Well, I've had enough of this nonsense. I'm going to dig into this company and find out what all the fuss is about. Because mark my words, when companies start making billions by keeping secrets, somebody's getting taken for a ride. And it's usually the little people like you and me. Here's what I know. Their stock started this year at $75. Now it's at $130. That's 71% in 6 months. The clever analysts on television say it might hit $200 by Christmas. Now, when I was young, if you wanted to invest in something, you darn well understood what it was. McDonald's sells burgers. Simple. Ford makes cars. Easy. But these modern companies, oh no, they're all disrupting this and revolutionizing that. Palantir's the worst of the lot. Everything they do is wrapped up in these non-disclosure agreements. Can't tell you what we're doing, but trust us, it's important. Important to whom? For what? They won't say. And this reminds me of Enron, that American company that went bust in 2001. Big fancy offices, lots of important sounding talk, and when it all came crashing down, nobody could explain where the money was supposed to come from. Now, I'm not saying Palantir's going to collapse tomorrow, but when companies make billions by keeping secrets, alarm bells start ringing in my head. Because I've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end well for the ordinary investor. But here's the thing that really gets my goat, the story of how this company started. September 11th, 2001. Terrible day that was. Changed everything, didn't it? Suddenly, everyone realized that different government departments weren't talking to each other. Classic government incompetence, if you ask me. So these tech lads from PayPal, and don't get me started on PayPal, charging fees for everything. They had this bright idea. Let's build software that can spot terrorists like we spot credit card fraud. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Use computers to catch the bad guys before they do something awful. Fair enough. But think about what that actually means. They're looking at your plane tickets, your bank withdrawals, your phone calls, where you go on holiday. Put it all together, and suddenly the computer thinks it knows whether you're planning something dodgy. And here's the bit that should worry you. The CIA, America's spy agency, was one of their first investors, not some venture capital firm. The actual Central Intelligence Agency. They put $2 million into a startup that was operating above a sushi shop. The CIA, investing in private companies. What's next? The Food and Drug Administration buying shares in your local corner shop. But it gets worse. This technology that was supposed to catch terrorists, well, it worked. Soldiers in Afghanistan could suddenly see networks of bomb makers they'd never spotted before. Lives were saved. The question is, if this technology is so good at finding patterns in foreign countries, what happens when they point it at us? So Palantir split itself in two, like some sort of corporate Jekyll and Hyde. First, there's product number 1, Gotham, named after Batman's city, which tells you everything you need to know about their sense of humor. This is the spy stuff. Military, intelligence agencies, all very hush-hush. The sort of work where if you tell your spouse what you did today, you'd be put in jail. Then there's product number 2, Foundry. This is where they take that same scary technology and sell it to normal companies. Banks use it to spot money laundering. Airlines use it for safety. Mining companies use it to stop their equipment blowing up. And here's the mental arithmetic that'll keep you awake at night. They've got 237 customers. Just 237. And last year, they made $2.23 billion. $2.23 billion from 237 customers. That's nearly $10 million per customer, per year. $10 million per customer! What on earth are they selling for $10 million a year? It's not like they're selling them aircraft carriers or office buildings. It's software, computer programs. I've been using computers since they were the size of washing machines, and I can tell you, no software is worth $10 million a year. Unless it's not really software they're selling at all. After weeks of digging, I think I've figured out what Palantir actually sells. They don't sell software, they sell miracles. Think about it this way. You're running some massive government department. You've got 50 different computer systems that don't talk to each other. You need to find patterns that might prevent disasters or save lives. You try to fix it yourself, spend 3 years and $50 million, and end up with nothing that works. Then Palantir walks in and says, "We'll sort this mess out in 6 months." And they do. They're not competing against other software companies. They're competing against impossible problems. And when you can solve impossible problems, you can charge impossible prices. Their whole strategy is backwards from normal business. Most companies try to find easy customers with simple problems. Palantir deliberately looks for the hardest, most expensive, most risky projects that nobody else wants to touch. Mad? Absolutely. Brilliant? Probably. Because once they've solved your impossible problem, you can't get rid of them. Try to switch to a competitor, and you'll discover that there are no competitors. Nobody else wants to touch the horrible, complicated mess you've got. But then, 2024 happened, and everything went mental. So everyone's going daft about artificial intelligence now, aren't they? ChatGPT this, AI that. Well, while everyone was playing with robot chatbots, Palantir was building something called AIP, Artificial Intelligence Platform. Imagine if ChatGPT, instead of helping university students cheat on their essays, was helping governments decide who to arrest or where to drop bombs. That's AIP. Then the Americans elected Donald Trump again. And suddenly, Palantir's stock price went absolutely mental. Up 200% since election day. Why? Because Peter Thiel, one of Palantir's founders, backed Trump early, really early. And now his company is getting government contracts like it's Christmas morning. $30 million to track immigrants, nearly $1 billion from the Navy, $800 million from the Defense Department. And that's just what they're telling us about. But here's the bit that should terrify you. They're building something called a master immigration database for Elon Musk's new government department. Every immigrant, every movement, every interaction with officials, all tracked in real time. If that doesn't sound like Big Brother to you, you haven't been paying attention. Right, this is where the story gets properly frightening. The American government isn't just buying Palantir's software. They're using it to build the most comprehensive surveillance system in history. They want to connect every government computer system. Your tax records, medical files, student loans, bank accounts, travel history, everything feeding into one giant database that Palantir can analyze. Think about that. Every time you interact with any government department, that information could end up in Palantir's computers. And those computers are designed to spot patterns, make predictions, and identify threats. But who decides what counts as a threat? 13 former Palantir employees have broken their silence. And that's huge, because these people usually sign agreements, promising never to criticize the company. They're saying Palantir is helping to normalize authoritarianism. Meanwhile, Palantir's boss, Alex Karp, is talking about scaring enemies and eliminating them when necessary. Eliminating them? That's not the sort of language you expect from someone who sells computer software, is it? So here's the question that's keeping me up at night. Exactly how much is a surveillance empire worth? The numbers are absolutely ridiculous. Palantir trades at 200 times future earnings. Nvidia, the darling of the AI boom, trades at 28 times. So Palantir is 7 times more expensive than the hottest technology stock on the planet. 7 times for a company that most people have never heard of. The pessimists say it's overvalued by 84%. The optimists say it could hit $250 by 2030. Who's right? Your guess is as good as mine. What I can tell you is this: profits jumped 120% last year. And smart money, Bill Ackman's hedge fund, has been holding nearly 10% of the company since 2021 and hasn't sold a share. But here's what worries me. Traditional ways of valuing companies might not work for Palantir, because they're not really a technology company, are they? They're more like a utility. But instead of providing gas or electricity, they provide something governments apparently can't live without: the ability to spy on everyone and everything. And once you're hooked on that particular drug, getting off becomes very difficult indeed. Want to know why Google and Amazon can't just copy what Palantir does? It's not the technology. Any decent programmer could probably build similar software. It's everything else. First, the security clearances. It takes years to get the level of clearance needed for Palantir's government work. You can't just hire someone off the street and expect them to start analyzing classified intelligence data. Second, relationships. Peter Thiel has been schmoozing politicians in Washington for 20 years. You can't replicate that overnight, no matter how much money you throw at it. Third, the switching costs. Once Palantir has rebuilt your entire organization around their platform, changing to something else isn't just expensive, it could be catastrophic. I found this example. Palantir's software identified fraud in seconds that took human investigators 2 months to find. 2 months compressed into seconds. That's not just faster, that's transformational. And here's the clever bit. The more customers Palantir gets, the more powerful their system becomes. Each new data source makes all the existing data more valuable. But no matter how strong a company looks, there are always risks that could bring it crashing down. Let's be honest about what could go wrong. Politics, obviously. If the Democrats win back control and decide Palantir is too cozy with surveillance and warfare, those juicy government contracts could disappear overnight. International sales are struggling. Revenue outside America is down 5%. Turns out foreign governments aren't keen on buying surveillance technology from American companies. Shocking, I know. Then there's competition. Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They've all got virtually unlimited money and armies of programmers. What happens when they decide they want a piece of Palantir's action? But the biggest risk might be public backlash. As people realize how much surveillance capability Palantir is building, privacy campaigners and civil liberties groups are getting louder and angrier. One former employee said it plainly: "I was helping create a monopoly over AI decision-making by targeting the government first. The government was easy to target because their existing technology was rubbish. But what happens when that changes? So is this the investment opportunity of a lifetime, or the most dangerous gamble you could make?" Here's where we stand. Palantir closed yesterday at $130. The all-time high was $133 just days ago, but the 52-week low was $21. That's an 83% drop from where we are now. So you're looking at a stock that's gained 500% in a year, with revenues growing at 30% annually, using technology that can do in seconds what takes humans months. But you're also looking at a company building surveillance infrastructure that could fundamentally change how governments control their citizens. A company whose boss talks about eliminating enemies. A company so secretive that even its own employees rarely speak about their work. The question isn't whether Palantir will make money. They already do. The question is whether you want to make money from what they're enabling. Because make no mistake, at $300 billion, Palantir isn't just another technology company. It's become a new kind of institution altogether. And institutions have a way of shaping the world around them, whether we like it or not. We used to worry about the military-industrial complex. Defense contractors getting too comfortable with the government. Well, now we've got something new to worry about. The surveillance industrial complex. Companies like Palantir don't just serve government customers. They determine what governments can do. They're exporting this technology worldwide, creating infrastructure that could reshape how power operates on a global scale. Palantir's AI is being used by Israeli forces in Gaza, by American forces analyzing drone footage, by police departments trying to predict crime before it happens. They've built something called Titan. It's a truck that can coordinate precision military strikes using artificial intelligence. This isn't science fiction. This is happening now. Previous generations of technology companies built platforms for chatting or shopping. Palantir is building platforms for power itself. Where does this lead us? And should ordinary investors care about anything beyond making money? Let me tell you what's coming, because it's mental. Palantir could land a $500 million contract with Freddie Mac. They're talking to Elon Musk about even more advanced systems. The American government wants to privatize some housing agencies by 2026. That could mean billions more in revenue. If Palantir keeps growing at 30% a year, they could hit $10 billion in revenue by 2030. At current profit margins, that would justify today's stock price, and then some. But the competition isn't standing still. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they're building rival systems with unlimited budgets, and there are regulatory risks. As surveillance capabilities become more powerful, governments face pressure from privacy groups and international bodies. Geopolitical tensions could hurt international expansion even more. Being tied to American intelligence is great for contracts in Washington, but it makes you toxic everywhere else. The question is, can Palantir grow fast enough to outrun these problems? Because behind all these charts and numbers are real people whose lives are being affected. Here's what the glossy investor reports don't mention. Palantir's technology is being used to track immigrants for deportation, to analyze surveillance footage of ordinary citizens, to make life and death decisions about military targets. Former employees, people who usually keep quiet because of legal agreements, are speaking out. They say government databases are already being used to erase information about transgender people and medical care. This isn't some dystopian future. This is happening right now. The question facing all of us, not just investors, is whether this technology serves democracy or destroys it. Because history is full of surveillance systems that started with good intentions and ended up being used for oppression. This tension between security and freedom isn't just philosophical, it's practical, and it could determine whether Palantir's success story continues or comes crashing down. Different types of investors are handling these moral questions in fascinating ways. I've talked to all sorts of investors about Palantir, and the responses are telling. Day traders don't care a bit about the surveillance angle. They just want to make money. And fair enough, this stock has made people wealthy. Pension fund managers have a different problem. They're legally required to maximize returns for retirees. If Palantir delivers consistent profits within legal boundaries, can they really say no? Ethical investors are split down the middle. Some refuse to touch surveillance technology with a 10-foot pole. Others argue that if this technology is going to exist anyway, better to have it built by companies with some accountability. Technology investors see Palantir as the next Microsoft, a platform that becomes essential infrastructure for the digital world. Each approach represents a different answer to the fundamental question: should investment decisions be purely about money, or should they reflect our values about the world we want to live in? But there's something even more unusual about Palantir that makes it different from every other stock. Think about this for a minute. When Facebook got in trouble for privacy violations, investors could examine user data, advertising metrics, platform statistics. They could make informed decisions about whether the company's practices were sustainable. When Tesla faced production problems, investors could look at delivery numbers, factory data, even Elon Musk's tweets. Everything was out in the open. With Palantir, you're investing blind. The most profitable contracts are classified. The most important capabilities are secret. Government relationships are hidden behind walls of official secrecy. This creates a massive information gap. Palantir executives know exactly what they do and how valuable it is. Government officials know how dependent they've become on Palantir's services. But ordinary investors are guessing based on quarterly reports and corporate marketing. In some ways, this secrecy might actually help Palantir. If investors can't understand the business, competitors probably can't either. But it also means you're betting on management's word rather than your own analysis. You're trusting people who literally cannot tell you what they do for a living. This secrecy becomes even more valuable when you understand something called network effects. Here's what makes Palantir potentially unbeatable. Every new customer makes the platform more valuable for existing customers. As more government agencies use Palantir, each new data source makes all the existing data more useful. More patterns emerge, more connections become visible. The system gets smarter. Same thing happens with commercial customers. As more companies integrate Palantir, the platform becomes more powerful and harder to replace. This creates enormous switching costs. Once you've rebuilt your organization around Palantir's platform, moving to a competitor becomes extremely expensive and risky. It's not just about software, it's your entire way of working. Remember Microsoft Office? Once businesses built everything around Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, switching became practically impossible, even when better alternatives came along. Palantir might be building something similar for data analysis and government operations. If they succeed, their business becomes virtually unassailable. But every successful company has vulnerabilities. For Palantir, the biggest one might be something most investors never think about. Here's Palantir's massive headache. How do you expand internationally when your core business is tied to American national security? Sales outside America are down 5%. That's worrying for a company trying to justify a $300 billion valuation. European governments are suspicious of American surveillance technology. Privacy regulations make expansion difficult. Concerns about digital sovereignty are growing. China and Russia aren't buying American spy tech. They're building their own systems they can control. That leaves smaller countries and emerging markets. But they can't afford Palantir's premium prices, and they often lack the data infrastructure to make the platform valuable. Palantir estimates their total market at $119 billion, but that assumes expansion into markets that might never open up. If the real market is smaller than projected, current valuations start looking silly. Geography isn't Palantir's only problem. There's also the issue of time. Alex Karp has been running Palantir since it started, but he's nearly 60 now. Peter Thiel has stepped back from day-to-day operations. Palantir's culture, part Silicon Valley startup, part defense contractor, has been shaped by its founders' personalities and connections. Can that survive when they're gone? New leaders might lack the government relationships and security clearances that made Palantir successful in the first place. And history shows that founder-led companies often struggle during leadership transitions, especially when personal relationships drive the business. For investors, this raises a fundamental question. Is Palantir a sustainable business, or is it dependent on specific people who won't be around forever? With all these factors in play, how do you actually decide whether to invest? Let me cut through all the noise and give you the straight facts. The optimistic case. Palantir has built an unbeatable position in a growing market. Technology that solves real problems for customers, paying premium prices. Artificial intelligence trends and government surveillance needs provide massive growth opportunities. Political connections create advantages competitors can't match. If they keep growing at 30% and expand their commercial business, they could hit $10 billion in revenue by 2030. That would justify today's prices and deliver enormous returns. The pessimistic case. Unsustainable valuation based on a business model investors don't understand. Enormous political risk. Change of government could devastate contracts. International expansion faces structural barriers. Competition from technology giants with unlimited resources. Most concerning, growth depends on surveillance and military applications that could face regulatory backlash. Secrecy makes it impossible to assess whether advantages are sustainable. Before you make any decision, you need to answer 3 uncomfortable questions. Question 1. Are you comfortable investing in a company whose most important work you can't evaluate? Palantir asks for trust that would be unthinkable with other companies. Question 2. Do you believe surveillance and data analysis will become more important to governments and corporations? If we're moving toward a more monitored world, Palantir is positioned to benefit. Question 3. Are you comfortable profiting from surveillance technology? This isn't just about returns. It's about whether your investment supports companies that enable government monitoring of citizens. These aren't easy questions. There are no right answers, but they're questions every potential Palantir investor should consider seriously. What's certain? Palantir will remain one of the most controversial stocks on the market. The company's future depends on political events, technological changes, and regulatory decisions that nobody can predict. When all is said and done, what will Palantir's legacy be? Palantir represents something completely new in business history. A publicly traded company whose core activities are fundamentally hidden from the people who own it. In an age where companies share every detail on social media, Palantir built a $300 billion empire by revealing practically nothing. This might be a return to older forms of capitalism, when investors bought shares based on reputation rather than detailed analysis. Or it might be something entirely new, investment in the infrastructure of power itself. 5 years from now, Palantir might be worth $500 billion, having become the operating system for global decision-making. Or it might be worth $50 billion, having failed to expand beyond government contracting. Some investors will get rich betting on Palantir's growth. Others will lose their shirts when reality doesn't match expectations. But regardless of what happens to the stock price, Palantir has already changed something fundamental about how we think about technology, government, and financial markets. They've proven that secrecy itself can be profitable, that investors will pay premium prices for companies they don't understand, as long as those companies solve important problems for powerful customers. Whether this is good for democracy, capitalism, or society remains an open question. But there's no question that Palantir has started a new chapter in both finance and technology. As I finish writing this, Palantir trades at $130 per share. The company is worth more than many banks, and most investors still have no idea what it actually does. Palantir has created something unprecedented, the opacity premium. Other companies are studying their model, wondering if they could command higher valuations by revealing less. This challenges basic assumptions about how markets should work, that everyone should have access to the same information. For ordinary investors like you and me, Palantir raises uncomfortable questions about modern capitalism. We're told data is the new oil, yet here's a company that profits not from owning data, but from controlling how information flows through power structures. They've turned transparency into a luxury good, available only to those with the highest security clearances and the deepest pockets. Most remarkably, Palantir has made mystery profitable in an age of total exposure. In a world where corporate secrets leak instantly and journalists can uncover any business strategy, they've maintained secrecy that would impress America's spy agencies. Whether this represents the future of business or a dangerous anomaly remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: Palantir has rewritten the rules. They've proved that in the information age, the most valuable information might be what you choose to keep secret. And that, frankly, should worry all of us. The company sits at the crossroads of artificial intelligence, government surveillance, global politics, and technological power concentration. Every dollar invested is essentially a vote for a future where computer algorithms become central to how authority is exercised. Palantir's path forward will determine not just investor returns, but the relationship between technology companies and democratic governments, between private innovation and public oversight, between progress and accountability. For anyone considering investment, the ultimate question isn't whether the stock will go up or down. It's whether you're comfortable betting your money on a company that has built its entire business model around keeping you in the dark. In the end, that might be the most honest assessment of what Palantir really represents. A test of how much mystery the market will tolerate and how much surveillance society will accept, all in the name of profit and security. Right? Listen here. I can assure you, there are loads more stories like this one shown here that'll make you think, how on earth did they make money from that rubbish? So if you have any soul, subscribe to my channel and learn more about this next company.